Deep within a valley forgotten by maps and men, there stood a tower that reached for the heavens like a silent prayer. It was a structure of ancient gray stone, ivy-clad and windowless, save for a single opening at the very peak. Here, the air smelled of mountain pine and isolation, a place where time seemed to hold its breath. This is where our story begins, in a sanctuary that was also a prison. Within these walls lived a girl whose beauty was whispered about by the wind, hidden away from the world's prying eyes. She was a secret kept by the shadows, a light burning in a cage of granite. Inside that tower lived Rapunzel, a young woman with incredibly long, shimmering golden hair that reached her ankles, fair skin, large emerald green eyes, and a small sprinkle of freckles across her nose, wearing a simple purple corset dress with lace trim. Her days were spent in a cycle of quiet activities, painting the walls with scenes of fields she had never seen, and singing songs to the birds that nested on the ledge. Her hair was her greatest treasure and her heaviest burden, a waterfall of gold that she brushed for hours every day. Despite her solitude, her spirit was vibrant, filled with a curiosity that the stone walls could not contain. She often wondered if the world beyond the trees was as colorful as the murals she created. Every year, on her birthday, Rapunzel would watch the distant horizon from her window, hoping for a sign. She saw lights that weren't stars, floating like embers in the night sky, and she felt a pull in her heart that she couldn't explain. She imagined herself walking on the soft grass, feeling the cool water of a stream, and meeting people who didn't fear the world outside. The tower felt smaller with each passing year, the ceiling lower, and the silence louder. She was a bird in a gilded cage, dreaming of the sky, while her wings were tethered to the floor by 70 feet of golden silk. Her only companion was the echo of her own voice, bouncing off the cold stone. The only other person Rapunzel knew was Mother Gothel, a woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that held the coldness of a winter moon. Gothel claimed to be her protector, the only one who could keep her safe from the wickedness of the world. She would arrive at the base of the tower and call out with a voice that was both a command and a plea. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," she would cry, and Rapunzel, obedient and yearning for any human contact, would wind her golden locks around a hook and lower them down. This was the only bridge between the tower and the ground, a fragile tether of hair and manipulation. Gothel would climb the golden braid, bringing with her stories of monsters and darkness to keep Rapunzel's fear alive. She brought supplies and silk, but she also brought a suffocating love that felt more like ownership. Rapunzel would listen, her emerald eyes wide with a mix of awe and terror, as Gothel described the dangers that lurked in the forest. Every time Rapunzel asked to leave, Gothel's face would harden into a mask of disappointment. "The world is too cruel for a flower like you," she would say, stroking Rapunzel's hair with fingers that felt like iron. Rapunzel began to realize that the tower wasn't built to keep the world out, but to keep her in. One fateful afternoon, while Gothel was away, a young prince with chestnut hair and kind eyes happened upon the hidden valley. He was a wanderer, seeking a path through the dense woods, when a melody reached his ears, a voice so pure it seemed to heal the very air. He followed the sound until he saw the impossible tower rising from the earth. He hid behind the ancient oaks, watching in amazement as the mysterious girl in the window sang to the sun. He had seen many wonders in his travels, but nothing compared to the ethereal beauty of the girl with the golden hair. He knew he had to find a way to reach her. The prince watched from the shadows as Gothel arrived and used the hair to climb. Taking note of the secret words, he waited until the witch had departed and the forest was silent once more. Stepping into the light, he called out with a trembling heart, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." To his shock, the golden waterfall cascaded down the stone wall. He climbed, his heart racing with every foot he gained, until he reached the window. When he vaulted inside, he found himself face to face with Rapunzel, who was armed with nothing but a heavy frying pan and a look of absolute confusion. Rapunzel had never seen another human besides Gothel, and certainly not a man. The prince, seeing her fear, lowered his hands and spoke with a gentleness she had never known. He told her of the world outside, of the bustling markets, the wide oceans, and the people who lived beneath the floating lights. Rapunzel, clutching her hair, listened as if he were telling a fairy tale. The fear in her emerald eyes slowly melted into a profound curiosity. For the first time, she wasn't being told why she should stay. She was being told why she should leave. They talked until the stars claimed the sky, two strangers becoming friends in a room above the clouds. Over the following weeks, the prince returned whenever Gothel was absent. He brought Rapunzel gifts from the outside, a silk scarf the color of the sea, a book of maps, and stories of a kingdom that missed its lost princess. Their bond grew into something deeper than friendship. It was a promise of a future together. They hatched a plan. The prince would bring silk every time he visited, and Rapunzel would weave a ladder long enough to reach the ground. Every strand of silk she wove was a thread of hope, a physical manifestation of her growing courage. She was no longer just Rapunzel of the tower. She was a woman reclaiming her destiny. But secrets in a tower are hard to keep. One evening, in a moment of distraction, Rapunzel made a fatal mistake. She mentioned to Mother Gothel how much heavier she was than the prince. The air in the room suddenly turned ice cold. Gothel's face twisted into a mask of pure rage, her eyes flashing with a terrifying light. She realized she had been betrayed, that her flower had been discovered by the world she tried to hide her from. Screaming in fury, Gothel seized Rapunzel's golden hair, winding it around her arm like a weapon. The sanctuary of the tower was instantly transformed into a place of nightmare and violence. In her jealous madness, Gothel took a pair of sharp shears. With a sickening snip-snap, the shimmering golden hair that had grown for 18 years fell to the floor in heaps of dead light. Rapunzel let out a cry of despair, watching her identity and her connection to the prince being severed in an instant. But Gothel wasn't finished. Using her dark magic, she cast Rapunzel away, banishing her to a desolate and barren desert where no one would ever find her. Rapunzel was left with nothing, no hair, no tower, and no hope. Standing amidst the burning sands of a world she had once only dreamed of seeing. Rapunzel wandered the desert for months, her purple dress tattered and her fair skin bronzed by the relentless sun. Her hair, now short and jagged, was a reminder of what she had lost. Yet, in the harshness of the wilderness, she found a strength she never knew she possessed. She learned to find water in the cacti and shelter in the caves. She was no longer the fragile girl in the tower. She was a survivor. Every night, she sang her songs to the moon, hoping that the wind would carry her voice back to the man she loved. She refused to let her spirit be broken by the sand and the silence. Meanwhile, back at the tower, Gothel had set a trap. When the prince arrived and called for Rapunzel, Gothel lowered the severed hair. As he reached the top, he found not his love, but the witch's mocking face. In the ensuing struggle, the prince fell from the tower's height. He landed in a thicket of thorns that saved his life but stole his sight. Blinded and broken-hearted, he began a desperate search for the girl whose voice was the only light he had left. He wandered the kingdoms as a beggar, calling out her name in every village and valley, driven by a love that transcended the darkness of his eyes. Years passed as both Rapunzel and the prince lived in their respective exiles. The prince's journey eventually led him to the edge of the fairy desert where Rapunzel lived. He was thin and worn, his clothes in rags, but his heart remained steadfast. One day, a familiar melody drifted across the dunes, a song of a golden tower and a lost light. It was a voice he would know even if the world ended. With renewed strength, he stumbled toward the sound. his feet bleeding and his breath ragged. He didn't need eyes to see the path. He followed the frequency of a soul that matched his own. In the middle of the wasteland, they finally found each other. Rapunzel saw a figure approaching, and realizing who it was, ran across the sand with tears streaming down her face. She fell into his arms, sobbing with a mixture of joy and sorrow. She saw his clouded eyes and understood the price he had paid for her. As she held him, her tears fell onto his face, tears of pure, unconditional love. In that moment, a miracle occurred. The magic inherent in her spirit, the light that had once lived in her hair, flowed through her tears and touched his eyes. The darkness vanished, and for the first time in years, the prince saw the face of his beloved. The prince saw Rapunzel not as the girl in the tower, but as the woman who had conquered the desert. Together, they returned to his kingdom, where they were welcomed with a celebration that lit up the entire sky. Rapunzel was reunited with her true parents, the king and queen, who had never stopped searching for their lost daughter. The floating lights she had watched from her window were revealed to be lanterns sent up by her people to guide her home. The tower was left to crumble, a relic of a past that no longer held power over her. Rapunzel had found her place in the sun, and the shadows were finally gone. The story of Rapunzel teaches us that no matter how high the walls or how deep the desert, the light of the truth cannot be hidden forever. True freedom isn't just about leaving a prison, it's about finding the courage to grow and the strength to love, even when things seem lost. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the valley and the dunes. If you enjoyed this retelling, please hit the like button and subscribe for more epic stories from the archives of legends. Don't forget to comment below with your favorite part of Rapunzel's journey. Until next time, keep your light shining bright.